I'll see what I can do to free up some additional units, Andy promised. There's going to be a hue and cry all over town until we close this one. Walker didn't care about the headlines or the calls from the mayor's office. He'd stay on it because that little girl deserved justice. He didn't envy Andy's need to balance justice with politics. He just respected his friend's ability to take the heat while letting his men do the job they were paid to do. I'll try not to leave you on the hot seat too long, he promised. You can't know how much I appreciate that, Andy said wryly. By the way, before I forget, you had a call earlier, some woman by the name of Jackson? When she heard you were out, she demanded to speak to me. He grinned. Tough lady. Seems to have something on her mind. Walker shook his head. Don't know her. Andy fished the messages out of a pile of papers on his desk. Says she's with social services down in Trinity Harbor, Virginia. Never heard of it. I've been there. It's a great little town on the Potomac a couple of hours from here. The sweetest crabs you'll ever taste. Victorian houses. A bunch of little frou-frou shops. You know, the kind women love. Antiques, crafts, all that artsy crap. Gail was in heaven. She wants me to buy a place down there so we can spend weekends and summers away from D.C. Says she could support us by opening a shop of her own. He sighed. To tell you the truth, after a day like today, it's beginning to sound real good to me. You'd be bored to tears in a week, Walker predicted. Andy grinned. Maybe less, but I'm willing to give it a try. Give the woman a call. She said it was important. Whatever, Walker said, tucking the message into his pocket. Strangers took a back seat to the immediacy of this investigation. 2 hours later, the message was still in his pocket, untouched, when the phone on his desk rang. Ames. Walker Ames? An unfamiliar voice asked. That's me. This is Frances Jackson. I left you a message several hours ago, she said, a note of censure in her voice. Andy might have found her tough attitude amusing, but prissy women like this always got Walker's back up. So you did, he agreed, tilting his chair back on 2 legs as he prepared to enjoy himself a little. On a day like this, any amusement, however slight, was welcome. Then you did get my message, she asked. I did. I believe I mentioned it was important. Didn't your boss explain that? He did. Then why haven't you returned the call? She asked impatiently. I've had some important things of my own to deal with. Such as? A dead 5-year-old shot right through the chest. Her dismayed gasp gave him a certain measure of satisfaction. Okay then, he said, ready to end this little diversion and get back to work. He wanted to hit the streets again before dark. It was destined to be another 14-hour day. You've got me now. What's on your mind? Are you related to Elizabeth Jean Flanagan? Oh, hell, he thought, as the front legs of his chair hit the floor with a thud. What had Beth gone and done now? His baby sister had always been troubled. She had taken off at 16 with a worthless piece of trash named Ryan Flanagan, who'd eventually gotten around to marrying her, gotten her pregnant 2 years later, then dumped her on the highway somewhere outside of Vegas when he concluded the responsibility for a kid was more than he'd bargained for. That was the last Walker had heard from her, 10, maybe 12 years ago. She'd called him in tears, saying she couldn't live without that jerk. Walker had badly wanted to tell her she was better off without him, but he'd managed to keep his opinion to himself. Instead, he had overnighted her some money for a ticket back to D.C., but she'd never shown up, nor had she ever called again. He tried every way he knew how to trace her, but if she was working, it was for cash. There wasn't a social security number in the system, probably thanks to the gypsy lifestyle she'd led with Flanagan. The man had thought the government was evil, and that the less it knew about him, the better. Some of that must have rubbed off on Beth. She didn't own a car and hadn't registered for a driver's license. There was no trail of credit card debt he could follow.